everyone. Welcome to this episode of Enterprise Alchemy. I'm Ant, today joined by Paul David Munnelly. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
It's an absolute pleasure. Mate, I just got to start.
Hmm.
The question, the stuff, you're only young, and the stuff you and your family have achieved
Yeah.
in a short space of time is just insane. So I'm honored that you would come on. Tell me a bit. So when you joined the business, it's 20 million, right? Give or take.
Yeah, there or thereabouts.
Okay. And now you're
We reported 140
right.
million last financial year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. How did it happen?
Yeah.
I think, look, I think the company that I came into, which was started, as I said, by my family, was a strong business. The name was strong in the construction industry. So our name, Munnelly, is quite known in the industry. And we had all the ingredients there. It was doing really well, and it still is. Where we got to where we are now is just through the hard work ethic, obviously, the perseverance.
Yeah.
You can't do it without working hard. And then just, being innovative, dynamic. Don't get me wrong, there's always been challenges. Like, this is not easy. It's never going to be easy. No one will ever say it's easy. But it's we've got brilliant people in the company, and we've been able to scale, and hopefully that will continue. That's the plan.
I love it. You make it sound so easy.
It's honestly, it's not.
Yeah.
If it's something you enjoy doing, which I do, then it does feel easy.
Yeah, I suppose it gives you the energy to show up every day and deal with all the crap that you have to wade through, and just keep at it. But it's good. You've got a smile on your face. You obviously like it. So, and I saw something of this, the CEO of NVIDIA talking the other day, actually, and they were saying, oh, you have to love work. And he said, well, I think you love the goal, or the, where you're getting to, but there's stuff you have to do that you don't love. And that's just as important. You got to get in there and you got to do it. But I think it's that vision, that belief is what will sustain you through the tough times. Because I think anything worth doing is never easy.
I think it's more of an achievement if it's challenging.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so let's look at what's going on right now, right? The Olympic Games. There are people that have spent the last 4 years, longer than that, building up to get to the point, and where they get success is being on that platform and winning medals. You might say it looks easy to them, but to get to that point would have been hard, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think where we are is where we have been as an SME. For me, business as usual, I find that disinteresting. I find that quite boring. I think that being an SME, you can be robust and dynamic. So every day is challenging, but you relish those challenges, because much like those athletes competing in Olympic Games, to get to where they are right now, they've had to go through the hurdles, and they've had to go through the challenges, injuries, or people saying they're not good enough. But to even get to that position of being at the Olympics, using that as an example, is just an achievement in itself. So
yeah, it's incredible.
Business is very much like that, because you've got to celebrate the wins, and to be even on that platform and to be able to do it, I think that's rewarding. But what really drives them, clearly, and what drives people who are potentially in leadership positions, is having those successful moments.
Yeah.
And then having that again, repeating it, not stopping, you haven't won the gold, right? I'm done. It's actually having those repeat moments.
Yeah, I think there may well be, you get a dopamine hit from it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And you go, oh, that was good.
Yeah.
That worked. I did that. That worked. And I got there. That was good. I want to go again.
Have you ever had those days where you finish and you think, oh my God, that was smashed it.
Yeah.
That was a great day. And you have those days where you're thinking, it feels like the world's against me, but every day's a new day, and it's often short-lived. In the same way of having a bad day is short-lived, having a good day is often short-lived, and you just want to do it again. You don't get the dopamine for having a bad day. You get the dopamine for having a good day. And I think that's why going from from us, let's say 20 million turnover back then to where we are now, we've gone through milestones and we want more. And that's why I'm saying that business as usual for me isn't interesting for me, because I just want more of those milestones and those achievements. And as a company, we want the same.
Yeah. So let's turn a little bit to the industry.
Mm.
You know, I know you got some views on the construction industry itself, and just tell us a bit about how you see it's potentially aging and changing.
Yeah.
And something I know you mentioned when we originally spoke is saying, how do we get to schools, for example, and
Yeah.
showing people the opportunities that are in the industry? So tell us a bit about what you're seeing, I suppose, at the high level, the industry dynamics.
I think young people don't want to get into construction. I don't know many young people that want to get into construction. You probably don't
No,
either.
no.
They want to get into media, finance, tech, engineering, those sorts of things. But there are careers in those within the industry. I think construction carries a stigma that, you're up at the crack of dawn and it's hard work. And a lot of times it is. And actually, the boots on the ground in order to build big structures is like that. But we have to make the industry attractive because there is an aging population and there's a gap whereby there's skills that were taught at school generations ago, which they're not doing anymore.
Okay, go on.
Whereby at school you may learn carpentry or steelwork or engineering. They don't really do that. They do it in mainland Europe, but not in the UK. Now, there's a big emphasis now on apprenticeships, which is really, really good. And the government are saying, we're going to build more houses, but who's going to build the houses? Because we need a workforce to be able to do that. And it often needs to be homegrown, or we need to attract talent from overseas. But the problem is right now is the UK is losing its appeal for overseas workforce because they're going to Canada or Australia and places like that. They're not coming to the UK as much anymore. So there is a gulf and there is a gap whereby we need skills. And if we are going to deliver all these houses and these projects, we need the workforce to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it is going to rely on young people, and it's going to rely on attracting people from overseas to want to do that. So we need to speak about that more. Mm-hmm. We need to make it more appealing. We need to talk about all the benefits of it because it can be a glamorous industry. It can be well paid. There are career paths there, but often that doesn't come across. And the reason I know that is because not many people that I know want to get into the industry. And the reason I know that is probably not a lot of people that want to get into the industry. Whereas what is glamorous is media and finance and things like that.
Okay, so I'll come back to, actually, I'll bookmark mentally that one because I want to come back to the app thing, right, that you're doing and how actually you can do things in construction tech.
Yes.
Which is interesting. But why do you think, like, what's happened? Is it a stigma? Is it that the industry's not represented itself well? Like, why do you think that sort of shortage is there?
I think there's competition with other industries.
Okay.
So construction generations ago would have attracted a lot, probably not as much now. I think there's a lot of negativity around it when we talk about big projects, which may be running up big bills or costs and things like that, or having a detrimental effect on the environment. So I think there's a lot of that as well. I also think that, as I said, there's competition with other nations now, with North America, Middle East, Australia, where they're building a lot. So before, if we loop back to when my family came over to the UK from Ireland, is because there was job opportunities, and anyone back in Ireland, that's what they would have done right now. But anyone in Ireland right now would probably be competing to go to Canada, Australia, the US.
I see.
So that's why there is that.
Okay, so it's sort of almost jobs or the trades, even if they are here, are saying, "Oh, I can go there."
Yeah.
And whether it's weather or pay or whatever it is, right?
Might be a bit of weather. I mean, working in Australia would be pretty nice, right? You get the good weather and things like that, far from home. But there are opportunities here. So it's all about making sure that, we're highlighting those and really shining a spotlight on those opportunities.
Is the government doing, like, is there any
Yeah.
stuff you're hearing or seeing or anything that they're doing to help?
I think that there's been, over the last couple of years, it has been the forgotten industry. Bearing in mind, during COVID, during the shutdown, construction was still going.
Right. So this is one thing that I'm super curious about, right? So, we say, oh, well, you don't want to do a trade, like you should go to uni, right? Let's see that thing. And the thing that really struck me was when we said, okay, now we're in COVID, so this is essential workers only. Who are the people that are still getting paid and going to work? It's the people building stuff, and the people like the plumbers, the electricians, the carpenters, the people driving the trucks, the people. So in actual fact, I think if you are skilled at your trade, you always have work.
It's 100%. It's not seasonal. It's throughout the year. You can have a pandemic, and we all saw those pictures in the press of trains fill up with construction workers because the industry was still going, because it props up the economy. It does a lot for the economy. We need to build. So, it's dynamic enough that during things like pandemic, or even during the after effects of a war, construction's so needed. And I think where it was forgotten, when I say forgotten industry for the last couple of years, it's because there wasn't enough emphasis on that, on what's happened. Now, I know right now they're saying we're going to build loads of houses, which is really, really good, right? Really, really good. But who's going to build them? So we can say we're going to do something, but who's going to do it, right? So we need to invest, and apprenticeships are the way forward for that. We need to invest and shine the spotlight on, actually, if we've got this quota, we want to build X amount of houses by X this date, we need people to build that. So we need to have emphasis on that. And do I think the government's doing enough? I think they do, in terms of saying they want to build houses and stuff like that. But I think from the government, what we need to do as a nation is actually make it attractive for people from overseas to come here, talent from overseas to come here, and then invest in young people to do that. That's what's missing.
Okay.
Because you can say let's build it, but you need to actually think strategy as well at the same time.
Yeah. So that's a funny one I often find is it's easy to say something.
Yeah.
It's much harder to actually do it, because then there are all of these realities, like you said, something as basic as, okay, who's going to do it?
And that whole, like, I'm saying something and not doing it, you can then say the same in business. A lot of people will say we're going to be the number one employer of choice, or we're going to be a real ethical company, or be very much conscious of the climate. But it's actually the people that actually do it. You can't just have these headlines and titles. You actually have to do it.
Yeah.
And be accountable for that.
Yeah. And right. So this actually leads me on to you just segued me there perfectly. Yeah. So thank you.
That wasn't planned, by the way. But.
Yeah, no, I know. But I was like, oh, now he's mentioned that, I remember there was something I wanted to ask. So you're right. And the thing is, it's difficult. And this is where I suspect, like, saying stuff is easy relatively. And it doesn't put a lot of emphasis necessarily on you. Now, where it is taxing is, like you say, walking the walk. You got to follow it through.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people just don't have the taste for that, for what's actually required. But
why don't they have the taste for it?
Okay, because it's difficult.
Yeah.
I think that's a good question.
No, because I agree. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't put themselves out there.
Okay, so here's
why. Okay, why wouldn't they do that?
All right. So I think it depends on the size of the business, right? To start with. So some of the stuff is they're like, okay, well, this is, we have, once we get to a certain size, we're very visible in the community. So we need to be seen to be doing the right things. Now certain then things that they will go through on, right? And like one of the big things I can remember back to the early 2000s when I was kind of working in corporate IT, like sales really, they're like, well, we need all this evidence that you're greening the supply chain, and that's got to go to the chief sustainability officer who was reporting to the CEO at the time. Now, where's the chief sustainability officer? Certainly not in the C-suite, if at all in the business.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. This is a product that's run on servers.
Yeah.
Right. There is no physical product. So how do we green the supply chain?
Yeah.
But it was a thing that they needed to be seen to be doing. So this is what I think is they get caught a lot of the time in, well, we have to do something. And someone at a board level says, well, what are we doing about this? Because we're going to get bad press if we don't say it. And then so they say, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And then it's like, well, it's either not the right thing to do or it's not feasible or whatever. So you get, greenwashing or any of these other things. So I think that's one thing.
So it's like, look busy.
Right, yeah.
Look busy because the board is pushing down pressure for results here, or to at least have something.
Right, I think, and to be, this is going to be a media issue or something, a reputational risk. So we need to show, when nobody's really serious, they're like, we just, it's like almost like yes ministers sometimes. I think.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from that show. So I think that might be a cause. I think the other is, so where you're trying to get talent.
Yeah.
Right. It's, and this is something I've seen time and time again, is that in terms of the employee experience, they overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah.
So it says, well, what do we need to say to that person? It's almost like, as if you're a customer, what do we need to say to win the business? But then it's like, okay, now you've put these things here. Can you actually deliver on that?
Yeah.
Or the other thing is, I think some companies are afraid if they said, what are our true values?
Yeah.
That people would go, geez, you're not very nice people.
Yeah. But isn't that really short-lived though? Isn't it a short-term attitude to have, well, we need to oversell something, whether it's to attract talent or to win work, and then underdeliver? That's only going to go so far, right?
Yep.
Even to the point where you said about those green initiatives, we need to say we're doing this, but the reality is different, because there'll be people in that company, or there'll be people that are aware of that, and they'll think, well, that's not the reality of what's going on. And nowadays, with the height of social media, it doesn't take much for someone to say, well, you're saying one of your core values is trust, but on the other hand, you're not doing that. So that's quite a short-lived perspective. And maybe there is that fear that actually, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to be held accountable for anything.
Right. So there
potentially.
Okay. So this is an interesting one to explore. I think there's a couple of pieces. One, particularly if you are VC, PE, or a listed company, they're usually looking on some kind of short time frame. Now, obviously, VC and PE is we need to flip it and get our return. And so then they should be honest and say, well, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so all this other stuff that we claim that's just window dressing. Like the real thing is we're trying to sell the business. Yeah. And then I think on the public markets, particularly the States, is, this quarterly reporting cycles is they get to, it just encourages massive short-termism. And then CEOs can be punted for, short-term stock price fluctuation. So it's almost like, say whatever you need to say to keep the stock price, at least stable, if not increasing. But what I think, and this is like a major challenge, I think, with that whole capital model, is sometimes you need to say, well, look, we need to make the hard choices now and we need to work towards this, but it's going to take 5 years. Now,
it's difficult when it's a public company, though, right? 'Cause you're answerable to the shareholders. And if you're not working towards a particular framework, anything off that, or if you deviate off that, they see that as risk, because they can they can see problems there with share value and things like that.
Yeah.
So I get that, unless you're someone like, Elon Musk, who can pretty much do whatever he wants, right?
But there's
only so many of those.
I was going to say, you probably count them on one hand.
Yeah.
So I think within that sphere then of pressure is they say, okay, well, we probably can't deliver on this stuff that they're asking for, but let's just say we are and like look busy about it.
Yeah.
And then hope it just kind of goes away.
Yeah. To keep the shareholders happy and to keep the status quo.
Yes.
Essentially.
And as well, you know, you think about a lot of the senior execs where there are the shareholders, you know, their bonuses, long-term incentives are often tied to the stock price. So it's this kind of cycle of like, well, yeah, we need to say what we need to say to keep these people happy and keep us out of bad press.
Yeah.
I'm
not saying that every company is like this. A lot of people are doing what they say they're doing.
Yeah.
I think where the problem is those companies that are saying one thing and doing something else.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think it's like an endemic problem, but I think the question is, well, you know, trying to understand, well, what's driving it there's a lot of environmental pressures, I think, that, you know, like yourself, myself in family businesses, you can afford to take a longer view.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, so this is the strange thing is like you can afford to take that longer view, but so therefore accountability arguably matters even more. Yeah. Because you say, well, it's not like I'm like, okay, I'm the CEO, I'm getting paid $5 million a year, I'll be out of here in 4 years, and whatever mess I make, someone else to clean up. Yeah. You go, likely the person to clean up the mess that I made is going to be me.
Yeah,
I think it changes the lens slightly of your decision making,
and I think that's why SMEs and those entrepreneurial startups can do more because they could potentially take more risk.
Yes,
right. If we're saying that a CEO of a public company, people see any deviation from the norm as risk. If you're a startup, or if you're an SME, you can be more dynamic. You can be robust. You can pivot. If you're a big corporate, you may not be able to do as much of that.
Yeah, totally. Because you know, it's like you're trying to turn a big tanker.
Yeah.
And also you got way more considerations. It's like, okay, we say or do something, it's getting in the news.
Yeah.
You know, or we have this particular group up in arms about something. And so it's just a far more complex environment, like which what you say is, I think, limits their decision-making ability. Yeah. Unless, like you say, you've got someone like Elon Musk who just does it anyway and just says, well, this is what we're doing. But I think, and whilst I think he goes too far in some stuff, I think at the same time, it's refreshing to see somebody who says, well, yeah, look, this is what I think we're going to do, and doesn't sugarcoat it and says, we're going to do it like Twitter. We're going to slim it down. We have to. And everybody there was saying, oh, this thing's going to implode in a week. It's still there as far as I'm aware. Like,
but I think they know if we go to what Elon Musk did, they know that if he wasn't there, the value of those businesses would be a lot less because he is the driver of that. He's the leader, essentially.
Yeah.
I think if we were to take what you said there about, you know, you can moving a tanker, oil tankers are harder than a flotilla or an agile boat. This industry, construction, is built on SMEs. There are lots of companies which are one-man bands or small companies which are startups. And that's why we're able to be innovative and dynamic and be agile during the likes of COVID, right? So I think that's where the construction industry is really great, in that we can innovate, we can take risk, and we can try new things, almost like a military operation, because there are a lot of SMEs in this industry that I'm in, which is brilliant, right? Because it promotes innovation, it promotes change, it allows us to do so much.
So this is something I wanted to ask you about, because I know when we were talking last time, you mentioned this, and because I said, oh, well, you know, you've gone from 20 to 140 mil, which is insane. And then saying, okay, well, do you want to go to 500 or whatever? And you're saying, well, it depends. Like, bigger isn't always beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. Can you just explain, I'm just interested, like, your thoughts on that, like how you actually manage what is really rapid growth, but purposeful profitable growth that makes strategic sense?
I think the whole big isn't beautiful is because there are a lot of companies which would chase revenue and turnover, and especially if they're answerable, as I said, to shareholders. For us, and I think the industry is all about having good revenue. What I mean by good revenue is long-term underpinned revenue. So you've got more of a commitment there, but also revenue which pays on time. The construction industry
Okay.
isn't necessarily the best payers of the supply chain. So winning the right work, having the good revenue, because otherwise it's not sustainable. Because essentially, if you do anything for cost, you're going to grow your revenue, but it's not sustainable. So
Right.
realistically, the bottom line is the most important thing for sustainable growth.
Yeah.
But if someone is giving you repeat business or is giving you repeat business, or repeat revenue, you're doing a good thing because you've got that repeat revenue, right?
Yeah, because
So that's the thing. So, and I think what happened quite a few years ago with Carillion was they were huge, right? And everyone thought they're too big to go under. When your revenue's huge, they're too big to go under. We've seen it in other industries, but no one's immune, right? And financial distress and financial stress is unbiased. So you've got to grow in the right way, and you do that from the correct sort of controls of the business and revenue.
yeah. That's a real interesting one because I see in Oz, right, whenever
Yeah.
interest rates go up and home building
Yeah.
slows, you just get a spate of just collapses of construction
Mm.
companies. And often where the turnovers, you go, oh my God, it's massive. And then they collapse owing all this money. And it's okay. So you didn't manage your cash flow and you were doing work that's not profitable. So it's interesting that often it's okay, well, there's basic financial controls here that and as you said, you're chasing revenue that's adding to your top line.
Yeah.
But because I can imagine then, let's say you said, okay, well, now we got 1,000, we had 200, now we got 1,000 staff. Okay, so you're paying those staff, but there's no margin in it. If that supplier doesn't pay or that customer doesn't pay, now we got 800 on the payroll.
Yeah.
That an additional 800 folks we need to pay. Now, where are we going to find the money? And I can imagine it's so. Like, why do you think the construction industry itself is prone to those types of things? Like, is it that just those controls, are not commonplace, or what's causing it? Do you think?
I think there's three things,
Okay.
right? I feel like the construction industry operates a lot on relationships. So one person will work for another person and they do it on trust. But then when the money doesn't often flow, sometimes the payments might be delayed and things like that, and they'll continue working. It's hard to shut something off. It's not like having a membership somewhere where you can give a month's notice. To shut off a package within construction is actually quite difficult because you've dedicated a lot of resource to it. So I think a lot of it's built on trust. So
Okay.
what tends to happen is the supply chain works for a company essentially in credit, in lieu, and a lot of companies operate in the red, right? And these are people that are starting up as well. So all they know is let's do the work and let's get paid off the back of it. So I think there's a lot of that in the industry. I think the second thing, which I've kind of mentioned previously, is that companies would use the bank to cash flow their businesses, and that's not sustainable.
Right.
Because all it takes is the bank to reduce the funding or get nervous about the industry and pull that. So they would operate in the red in that sense. And then thirdly, and this kind of goes back to what we said about the government. The government did provide support with furlough and for sort of tax relief. But then it got to the point it was right, let's pull that now. And that's when you started to see a lot of, in the press, companies going into administration and things like that. Because there wasn't necessarily a waterfall effect where or a slow effect where companies were coming off the government support. It was essentially
Okay.
support, and that's why I think the industry, it was reported, has the most number of companies that went into administration in the last 12 months, and I feel like it's off the back of what happened back
Okay.
then.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're all getting smarter. A lot of the companies are working better, more financially astute, putting in those controls to avoid that from happening.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got two more questions left as we're kind of rounding towards the end. So one, the thing I was really interested to learn when we spoke, you're doing tech stuff as well, right? For the construction industry.
Yeah.
So clearly you're somebody who loves a bit of innovation, do things more efficiently, do it different. Tell us, tell us about it. What is it? How
Right.
does it
So I love tech. Right. I've kind of studied a bit of tech. I was from the MTV generation where you were just being consumed by all of this technology and things like that and innovation. We like tech because whilst the industry is a people business, if we are really going to drive efficiency, it is through technology.
Okay.
And technology is great because it can keep people safe. It can increase productivity. It can increase efficiencies. Tech is brilliant. We develop our own tech within our business, and we use it on ourselves. So we sandbox it ourselves.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So instead of us thinking, right, what does the industry need? It starts with, right, what do we need to drive efficiencies here and productivity? So we sandbox it ourselves. And then when we feel like actually it's made a positive impact, we think, well, let's just flip it and let's externalize it.
Okay.
So we've done that with AI. We've been using AI for a while now. And we've been using it on our own data and aggregating all the data and making it super easy to get to those touch points. And we've been using that very successfully, which is brilliant, right? And it's made us a lot more receptive to what's going on. And even going back in 40 years of trading, we're able to find things which would have been a nightmare to find. So we've learned a lot. We felt that actually this could be really good for the industry. So then we externalized it, and that's where Construct AI came from, as a way for other companies to then utilize that within their own in their own vacuum of the company, but also training it on construction relevant things, whether that's contracts or health and safety initiatives or things like the weather. Or flood risks when it comes to rail. So it's really dedicated to that. And we find it really useful because it just makes those tedious tasks a lot easier.
Yeah.
So if we can help with people's learning, and also young people are going to be growing up in this, like how people grew up with internet, or like how when people grew up with computers, young people are growing up with AI. Right? So that's all they know. So they'll be using it better than you or I or anyone else. So let's give them the tools to be able to do what they need so that they can be a better generation than the one that's just been.
Love it. All right.
That's the plan anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense. So final question here, and it's more of a...
It's not chunky chips or French fries, is it?
Well, we've already, I think, solved that. It's the
mix.
It's the mix. Now I'm hungry. So is yourself, right? You're not 40 yet, right?
No.
Getting close, but not quite. Yeah. So presumably things keep going the way they're going in your business. You can well and truly retire in your 40s if you wanted to. Right. But I know you said retirement isn't a thing. So where do you, someone like you that's achieved that amount of stuff, right? I know with your family and with the business, what's next? What do you think about, is it kicking off kicking up the heels and on a beach somewhere, or is it?
I'd find that boring though, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. It would suck.
What is retirement? There's only so much golf you can play, right? And there's only so many pina coladas you can have on a beach.
Yeah,
So I feel like that would be fun for a bit, but
yeah, I think often I like the idea of it.
yeah,
And I go, oh, yeah, that'd be mad. Especially if you've had a bad day and be like, oh, that'd be great.
yeah.
But the reality is, if you're intellectually curious, then you'd be like, okay, I'm bored now.
Yeah.
What's the next challenge or problem or thing I can do or solve to just, because it's as much as a personal thing of basically, like you say, what else would you do?
Yeah, and like it makes holidays that much better.
Right?
Yeah, so what would I do? Right, retirement, I can't see that happening anytime. I'm not even thinking about that. I wouldn't want to. I don't know what the future holds, but I really like what's happening and this growth journey. And if it allows us to do what we do from this small island in the UK, let's see where we can take that. I think a lot of what we do is transferable to other industries.
Okay.
And I think a lot of what we do is transferable to potentially other nations as well. So whilst my dad seeded it here, let's see where it can branch out. And I think that's the plan. But no retirement. I just would be, I'd be really bored. And it's not the one for me. Although you could learn a few things, I guess, because I always say I want to do this, I want to learn that.
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah, that's kind of all that stuff that I must admit, I say, okay, well, if I had the time, then I'd spend more time with the piano and I'd, like get my playing up to scratch.
Yeah.
And
I bet you wouldn't know, even if you
I know, right? That's the thing. I'd say I would. Yeah, I'd say I would, and then you don't. And I think the other thing is, I find if you're the kind of person that needs constant like new challenges, like you say, like as much as I don't mind, I wouldn't say I love, but don't mind golf, like as in going and playing with some mates and having a few beers and having a hit. I couldn't do it every day. No. And there's some people who are saying, no, I can just do that one thing and just do it every day and sharpen that edge. And I'm like, no.
No, I think
it's not varied enough for me.
Your brain is a muscle, so it needs to be trained. And the moment you stop training your brain, it's just gonna turn to sludge.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep on training. So that's why I think almost being challenged and enjoying those challenges, hitting the milestones, I think that's really important for anyone. And as I said, in construction, and I'll finish on this, that in construction, it can be a long career and you can do it till you're 60, 70, and it can take you to some really great places. So it's not short-lived. Whereas some industries, your prime is within a certain period. You could be in your prime in construction at 50, 60, and I know lots of people that are. So it can be long-lived. So for me, retirement's not there. And if you do catch me on the beach, it'll be on holiday. It won't be retired.
Yeah. Okay. That's and like you say, it makes it that much sweeter.
Yeah, you enjoy it more.
Yeah, you earned it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome. All right, mate. Well, Paul, thank you so much for giving the time today to have a chat, sharing a bit of your insider knowledge and, some of those pieces of how you got to where you are. And it sounds like it's just the beginning. So you got,
let's see.
Yeah, got a long way
to go. You have
to
invite me back in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, I will, right? And then you'll be like, yeah, we just took over the United States. Yeah.
Imagine.
Just give me the inside tip on the IPO, mate.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's see if we go there.
Cool. All right, guys. That's it for this episode of Enterprise Alchemy. We will see you guys on the next one.